Owner to placemaking.
I said, if I give you the
o'clock. The Grand Traverse County Park and Rec Commission meeting is called to order. I'll start by saying thanks for electing me last month. I'll teach me not to show up at meetings anymore. And I'll appreciate your patience with me as I learn to find my rhythm. I do things a little bit differently, and we'll work through this to try to accomplish our objectives here. Marilyn, can you call the roll, please?
Bob Carstens.
Here.
Russell Clark.
Here.
Peter Doran.
Here.
Bill Dorier.
Here.
Scott Joseph.
Here.
Al Larson.
Here.
Rebecca Cass is excused. Christine Mitzbauer.
Here.
Kevin McGelly is excused. Dave Taylor.
Here. All right, next item of business, first public comment period.
My name is Nancy Stanley.
You need to come to the microphone.
I'm not much of a public speaker, so you have to bear with me. And I was here just to ask a few questions regarding the pool and the usage of the pool by the Traverse City Swim Team. I have a letter here that was handed to me by someone who could not come tonight, unfortunately, talking about why there are different athletic groups that use the county facilities and some are at a discount. One was the American Legion baseball team, and I know that the rent that we pay for the pool for the Traverse City Swim Team is humongous. Compared to the hockey, I think they pay for 6 months about $8,000. We pay about $30,000 to rent the water. And it's a huge burden on the team. And I was wondering if you're discounting for one sports program, could we have the opportunity for the same consideration? And that's basically my question. I'm here to just ask questions because I don't know the answer to that. So that's my question for the day.
That's a very difficult question to answer. In regards to the action allowing the American Legion a break, that was an action taken by the Board of Commissioners and not this body. We are still in discussion with the Board of Commissioners about that issue, but not reached a resolution. We are we are subservient to the Board of Commissioners, and so we have an input to their decisions, but we don't have the final decision-making authority. I can say that in regard to the fairness of their deal versus yours. Is your issue with the deal that they're getting and you're not, or is your issue with the amount of rent that you're paying at the pool compared to other pool rents at places around the state?
It could be both, honestly. The $30,000, that's only for I was just citing that as I know that the hockey team is there for 6 months. They pay about the $8,000. We're there longer than 6 months. Our total pool bill was maybe about 45, between 43 and 45 for the season. And so I would like to understand why some groups get a break and we don't. And I guess secondly, I don't know of any place in Michigan that pays as much as we do for rent for the water. People are usually astounded when we go to meets, and you know, baseball cannot save lives, but learning how to swim could really do it. And in an area like Traverse City, in a city as beautiful as ours, and we have so much going on for us, it's always been a question that I've had for a long time about that, the pool and the high rent that we pay to use it. So I guess I have a lot of different questions, and I don't know the answers. That's why I decided to come tonight and ask and see what the answers would be for that.
Okay.
Or how do I possibly go about putting us in front of the correct people that could make a decision to help reduce our rent for the team? And we've had a great success this year. We've had kids that are successful on the state level and beyond. So we're producing great athletes, and I would love to see, just because they don't hit a ball or a puck, I would still love their program to be considered as really a viable program. Some of these kids have the opportunity to get a college scholarship out of it. And all that aside, it's a great thing to know how to do. So, that's...
All right, well, we are a county organization, and we are responsive to the citizens of this county, and so we're interested, or we're open to the conversation, and if you have specific ideas or data that would support your argument, we'd certainly be willing to listen to them. This is the appropriate forum for pool issues, and so I would simply invite that and leave it open to a future discussion. Jason, do you have any comments you'd like to add?
I'd just like to thank you for coming and sharing that question. I think it was a good question. Thank you.
Is there anything further that I can do? Can I write a letter or gather information and present it at another time? What would be my next step in the inquiry as to why, you know, how maybe we could get some satisfaction for this, or a reduction, or to help me understand better so that I could take it back to the members of the team so they understand? What would my next step be?
My opinion would be you could gather some facts about I guess what other pools charge, and comparison of whether that's apples and apples. We meet once a month. Our next meeting is 4 weeks from today or 1 month from today on the 17th of March, 4 weeks from today. And we certainly listen to your argument and take it under advisement and discussion.
I would like to say that I think that the job they're doing now is great as far as the facility. I mean, they do the best they can. I know it's an older facility. I understand that, so I don't have a problem with that. It's simply a rent issue. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just want to wait. I missed your name. Could you tell me again?
it's Nancy Stanwyck.
Mrs. Stanwyck, in the interest of making sure everybody understands, I just want to point out that later on in our agenda tonight, there is an item to discuss user fees at our facilities. Some members of this commission were very surprised by the action the county commission took to reduce the fees for American Legion. And
That's kind of specifically what I was...
right, and we don't understand it either. So we're going to be discussing that tonight. Probably no resolution, but in the coming meetings, this is very much a live topic.
Great.
I just didn't want you to leave this meeting and then find out that we're talking about it later.
Well, I might even stay and listen.
Okay.
I'd love to see some fairness across the board for any athlete. I mean, if they want to go play broom hockey and they have to rent facility, I'd love to see it fair for whatever sport the children, you know, are doing, so.
There are a number of, each facility is different and had a different birthing process. And for instance, a group of citizens gathered a bunch of money and made a long-term effort to build Howe Arena. And part of that was the agreement for the rental for that facility. So if that rent for the hockey seems a little low, part of that is because the investment, the financial investment, was mostly theirs. And you're representing the Traverse City Breakers
Correct.
team? And so it is a different situation and a different deal for that. The American Legion, as Commissioner Dorier said, is an ongoing issue that's currently under discussion.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I heard, Mrs. Stanwyck, I heard you say that you represented the Traverse City swim team. I was under the impression when you said that it was the high school team, but you're representing Breakers, not the high
Breakers,
school team.
Correct.
Okay, thank
I
you.
actually have a child that swims on both,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know how well I'm representing. I'm a concerned parent
Oh,
that's
no,
coming
that's
here
fine.
to
I just
ask
wanted
some
to clarify in my
questions, so.
own mind, whether or not you were
The
questioning the
Breakers,
fees for the high school swim team versus, when you said Breakers, I know they're two different
If-
Right.
groups.
If I could interject, the fees for the high school swim team and for what the Breakers pay are exactly the same. They pay the same pool rent per hour, so.
We're just in there for a lot longer. So like I said, I don't want to necessarily speak for the team. I'm a parent here trying to find some answers, so.
All right, any other questions for Mrs. Stanwyck? All right, thank you very much.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Anyone else for public comment? Go ahead. State your name and your address. And,
Okay, Chad Bissonette, 3171 Lincoln Drive. And that's in Kalkaska, actually, that address. I'm a commuter. But heavily involved here in Traverse City. I'm the president of the Traverse City Breakers. Nancy is the vice president, and just to kind of follow up and reinforce some of what she said, and I was just a little bit late getting here, so I'm not exactly sure what she went through to begin with. But one thing that a lot of times gets overlooked with swimming is it's a very specialized sport. Coaches, I don't know if I've ever seen a volunteer swim coach because there's so much time that really goes into it and so much specialty that goes along with it. So we have a paid staff, which you won't find with T-Bays or the hockey or American Legion. They're usually all volunteers. So we also have that cost that we got to consider on top of pool rent. And we do travel when we go to meets, so there's traveling costs. There's essentially a lot of costs that go along with swimming. So when we look at pool rent, that is a portion of our budget, a very large portion of the Traverse City Breakers budget. When we look at that in comparison to teams around the state, and I go to meets probably 6 times, or no, probably 8 times throughout the winter season here. This is the real heavy attended season for the swimming. I ask people about what they pay, for their kids to swim, how much they pay in pool rent, and so on and so forth, and they are absolutely astounded about as far as our pool bill goes. I was talking to a guy from Club Wolverine, which is based in Ann Arbor. They swim at the University of Michigan, and there's about 9 community pools in Ann Arbor, which they will swim out of. And they, for their entire program, which is probably 6 times the size of ours, if not more, they pay about the same as we do for that size of a program, which is probably the biggest program in Michigan.
For the 9 pools that they
Yeah,
use.
right. And there's 9 different pools. I think it might move around a little bit for them, but I know for sure they use about 4 facilities at least. There's 4 different locations that they swim from. So in comparison, that is something anecdotally that is, when you're looking at program comparisons, and then when you look at Y swim clubs, where YMCA clubs, they also compete in the same meets that we do with USA Swimming. It's even better because once our kid joins the membership, then they pay a program cost, which is far beneath our costs, and they really don't have any pool rent that they got to contend with because it's absorbed, within the YMCA facilities. So in that regards, we're even further disadvantaged as far as that goes. And to be quite honest with you, for a group of our size, we usually have between 80 and 90 kids a season. We do very well. We are a very competitive team. We've brought home several state championships within the last 5-6 years. We've had some second and third place high point overalls, kids that went on to zones and sectionals. We got a particular swimmer right now that has some national cuts, and she's going to Orlando coming up here in March. And the sectional meets, which is kind of like a regional, probably like a 8 to 9 state region meet. So these kids are very competitive. It's an outstanding program that does surprisingly well for our size, and it's something that we should be very proud of for really, what we have, because so many other clubs have so many other resources that whenever we kind of tell them what we're all about, they really look up to us, and they're very, very interested in how we maintain such good swimming up here with what we got. And when we tell them this is their only public pool that we have available to us in Traverse City, and they can't understand that because usually they have 3, 4, 5, 6 pools that they get to choose from to swim out of. So it is a very important thing for us, and it's a very important thing as far as Nancy touched on it, life safety. These kids are learning a life skill. They're learning a skill set here that's, when I look at swimmers and how much time they spend in the pool, their competitiveness, their dedication to that sport, and how that translates into other areas of their life is really remarkable. They are usually a very good crop of kids, and I think it's because of that dedication. It is such a hard sport. They spend 2 hours swimming back and forth in those lanes, and there's a lot to be said for that. So, and that's about it. I just kind of wanted to reinforce a couple things and add to that conversation. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else public comment? All right, very good. Next, we'll move on to the special orders of business, and we have a presentation this evening from the TART group.
Hi, I'm Julie Clark. I'm the new Executive Director of TART Trails, and it is my pleasure to give a brief presentation to you tonight, just kind of who we are, what we do, and an update, because I imagine most of you know who we are and what we do. Lee Maynard is with me tonight. She's my new Trail Program and Planning Director. She is from the Conservancy, the Grand Traverse Regional Conservancy. So we're all a little new. I came in July, and it's my pleasure and privilege to be here, and Lee joined us in December. So with that, I'll just get to the presentation, because Jason told me I only had 10 minutes, and I could talk TART all night long. So just a brief kind of recap of, in case you didn't know the history of TART, and a lot of you, I know, actually might know the history of TART. I'm looking at Pete Doran, and he certainly does, because he would have been on one of those original 4 groups that started TART, and then Russ Clark, the same thing. Bob Karstens, we've worked with a lot over the years as well. So the great thing about TART is we have a big, long community history here, and it's really rather remarkable. We were formed in 1998 officially. There were 4 different groups kind of doing the trail thing out there back in the 90s. That was the Leelanau Trail Group, which y'all made big national news, because even us in the South had heard of the Leelanau Trail. There was the Boardman River Steering, Boardman River Steering Committee, is that right, Russ? Russ was part of that. Citizens for a Better Way, which was the internal part of Traverse City, the trail that goes through Traverse City, and Pete was involved with that. And then there was the Leelanau Trail, which is what TART owns and manages today.
We're not
So-
picking you up on the video very well. If you could sit and be a little closer to the mic, that would help the recording, is
Sure.
all. Thank you.
Okay, wow, I'm a pacer, so this is, you got me caged in a little.
We'll tie your hands together, too.
That's right. You can, I'll make sure I stay in this. Anyway, in 1998, they all got together and said, we're doing a lot of similar things. The fourth group, of course, is the VASA Pathway, which exists today due to the hard work of volunteers. And that's really the heart and soul of TART. We have over 300 volunteers who put in 600 hours. We have 114 ambassadors, and those are people who have gone through special training, who know, live, love, and breathe TART. And then we have 4 staff and a board of 16. So we are a small staff, but we have a big reach, and it's really through volunteers. I can tell you folks like Pete and Russ and Bob put in lots of time and hours to make TART what it is today. So what do we do? I think that's a really good question, and it was one I asked, for about 4 months. Now I'm figuring it out. But what we do is build and advocate for infrastructure, non-motorized infrastructure. Like I said, we have and own 15 miles of trail. That's the Leelanau Trail that starts pretty much by West Bay, Tom's West Bay there on 72, and then heads up 15 miles to Sutton Bay. We actually have a little bit more land north of that in Sutton's Bay, and that's undeveloped. We manage and maintain about 60 miles of trail within the Traverse region. That includes the VASA Pathway. We helped do minor maintenance on the trails in town, so TART in town, Boardman Lake, 3 Mile, which is along 3 Mile Road, and then what we call the Mall Trail, which is just along Division Street. It's a multi-use trail put in by the Road Commission. What we also do, and probably the biggest part of what we do, is advocate and collaborate to provide that non-motorized infrastructure. It takes a lot of work to bring in grant money. There's always matches to grant money. It doesn't seem they really offer that 100% free stuff very much. So what we can do, and what we often do, is serve as that rallying force to bring in private dollars or bring in grant dollars. We do both things because we believe a non-motorized system of recreation and transportation trails is a good thing for the community. We have done surveys on our trails, and we know that over 200,000 people are using those trails in a year. So we have lots of activity out there. The great thing about our trail system is that it not only provides a recreational opportunity, which is really important, but it also ties together communities. So you can get on and go where you want to go get a bite to eat, go to the drugstore, go to work, actually use them for transportation purposes. We also do programs and events, outreach and marketing. You may have heard of our Smart Commute program that we do. Lee is actually spearheading that effort this spring, and that's to encourage different ways to get around, whether it's walking, biking, or using transit. So we focus on a week in June. In the South, we did it in May, but apparently it's still cold here in May, so we do it in June. And it's a whole week just focused on using something other than your car to get around to work. We also, like I said, do funding and maintenance. Most of our funding comes through private donations. That's used to help maintain the trail systems and, again, provide those matches on grants that are brought in. A sense of where we are, a rather small map, but again, I love living in Michigan because you can use your hand and the water to figure out where you are. So our system is pretty much the red. It heads up the peninsula there along the Leelanau Trail, in through Traverse City, and then out towards that green squiggly stuff, which is the VASA. It also heads east towards the big blue arrow that points north to Elk Rapids, and then there's, of course, the Boardman, which is the water spot right there in the middle of the map, the Boardman River and lake. Our intent is to provide recreation and transportation options all year long. Our vision is one of happy, active people using a network of non-motorized trails, and we believe it's a year-round type thing. Whether they're on skis or on foot or on snowshoe or on bikes, we want to provide the opportunity for people to get out and enjoy the trail system. Like I said, we do several programs, whether it's Smart Commute or Recycle a Bicycle, which is run by the gentleman in the top corner picture, Don Kunkel. He has delivered and repaired over 500 bikes to those folks in need. So getting a junker bike, he fixes it up and delivers it to somebody, whether they're at the Women's Resource Center or Goodwill or Salvation Army. He provides a real means of transportation for people in the community that don't have an option. We also do work bees, so we have a lot of volunteers. Those 300 people get out there and help us in lots of different ways, and one of them is maintaining our trails. That picture that you see is actually up in Sutton's Bay where the trail's not yet developed, but lots of runners like to go up there. The most exciting stuff, maybe for you all, and I promise, like I said, 10 minutes, so I'm cutting it, is what's coming up. I embarked upon a very busy year at TART. Maybe had I known what I was getting into, I might have thought about it. But it's really an exciting time because there's more trail to get on the ground. Up here, I've listed a couple of different trail projects that are ongoing. Sleeping Bear Heritage Trail is a 27-mile trail that we're fundraising for out in Leelanau County. It will connect the sort of north and southern terminus of Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. So you will be able to ride from the Village of Empire 27 miles north to Good Harbor Bay, and it'll be a multi-use paved trail. So we're working, that's a partnership with National Park Service and Friends of Sleeping Bear and COG, putting together that trail project. That will be a nationally significant trail. We've secured funding from Transit in Parks and are working on a private fundraising campaign right now, but you'll be seeing lots of that in the news in the months to come. Buffalo Ridge, and I'll get to a photo of that in a minute, that you may have heard some rumblings on that. That's part of the South Campus entrance that's being done with the Joint Recreation Authority. Again, a great example of a collaborative partnership between the city, the Joint Rec Authority Board, Munson, and TART. What's happened is we had a road project. It didn't have any non-motorized components because there wasn't funding, but it happened to be the home of Buffalo Ridge Trail, which would provide an important connection from Traverse City out to Garfield Township. We worked with the city, with the Joint Rec Authority Board, and with the stakeholders in the area, and we came up with a funding plan that will provide those facilities as well as design options. And that was a real group effort. So Munson pitched in $10,000, said we'll give you a $10,000 cash match, and TART's working with the Joint Rec Authority Board to make sure we find those extra 10 and then beyond. And then we're working with Garfield Township.
Will that connect the YMCA property?
It will. That's Garfield Township. They got really excited about this idea and have taken the ball, and we're working now with Garfield Township to extend the trail from West Middle School, where the trails exist today, out to the new YMCA. So it's really exciting stuff. Once those balls get rolling, it's hard to stop them down the hill. Boardman Lake Trail, maybe you've read some stuff about that in the paper. That's the west side of Boardman Lake. We are very interested in having that keep moving, and Jason will be a great partner, I'm sure, as we start to move into the design and implementation of that. Boardman River Trail, that actually keeps going once you head south under Airport Road, which we just completed a feasibility study for. And Christine, I'm sure we'll have the pleasure of hearing that report sometime soon. We did a feasibility report to have a grade-separated crossing at South Airport Road, and that will continue a 24-mile trail system, which eventually loops back up to the Vasa, so a connected trail system. And that's really what we're trying to do, is make those connections, whether it's for recreation or transportation. Other things that are important to the county would be the closing of the Acme Gap, something Pete's been working on for 20 years? 40. Oh, don't say that, because I get excited every month. You know, Meyer's coming. Oh, Meyer's going. But we are working with the developers there to try to close that gap, which then leads into a northern push up to Elk Rapids. We are working with the Land Conservancy to try to put together a study that'll bring trail from Acme north to Elk Rapids. And it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to connect to the existing 100-plus mile trail system that happens near Tip of the Mitt. We are launching our Leelanau Trail paving project. That'll start this fall, hopefully. We'll be doing some fundraising, but you'll hear more about it. There's a gap, about 6 miles of dirt road in the Tart Trail, and we're going to be closing that gap. And then Tartan Town, that's helping people get around town on bike. I'm looking at Jason for time, but I think I'm there. So this is just sort of the internal system. Buffalo Ridge is the blue trail out to the west side of town. Boardman Lake is another one we're working on. So those are our two big in-town, when I say in-town, I mean Traverse City, that area, projects. One thing I always like to end on is, why do we do what we do? It's for people of all ages and all abilities to get around and enjoy themselves. It's not just for those spandex crews out there. They're great. But what trails offer are opportunities for benefits for social, economic, environmental. It's not just about a great place to ride. It's about a great place to live. Questions? Did I do it? 10 minutes?
Mark this down for her. One of the most important partners in the history of trail development has been the Grand Traverse County Road Commission, and we've got the chairman on our board here today too. So that's been a tremendous boon and a source of funding for the development of the TART throughout the years by tapping into either MDOT or federal transportation funds. So hope
We could not
continue.
do what we do without our partners.
I hope that this commission will have the opportunity to partner with TART when it's appropriate on a specific project too.
Me too.
Commissioner Clark?
Just a quick question. Could you go back to your map?
Which one, sir?
Right there.
Oh, yes.
Is that linkage connecting the Civic Center to the Tart Trail? On the
Yes,
far-
you saw that correctly. That would be one of our brilliant volunteers, John Robert Williams, who's had this idea for a long time to try to provide a direct linkage to the Civic Center.
Excellent, thank you.
Commissioner Dorier?
Yeah, what's the timing on the Sleeping Bear Trail?
Quicker than I would want, maybe. Actual construction is expected to start this fall on the first 5 miles. We hope to have the majority of the fundraising done, which is $5 million in private funds and $5 million in federal funds, done in the next 2 years. We've been successful in getting grants, so theoretically we could have the first phase, which is from Glen Arbor to Empire, done in the next 3 years.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. We appreciate
Thank you.
that
I appreciate the
presentation.
opportunity. And let's keep up a regular dialogue, if that's okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jason, for the invitation, too.
Absolutely. Why don't we keep that dialogue going next Thursday?
Done.
3 o'clock?
3 o'clock.
Sounds good.
All right, next up, 2010 budget and Budget 101.
It's you, buddy. And before Dean gets started, the handouts that Dean's going to be referring to were added to on your desk. They're these documents. It's a 3-page document.
Good evening, Dean Bott, the County Finance Director. I will walk you through the information that was added very, very last minute, and I apologize for that. Jason wanted me to present briefly the information regarding the Parks and Recreation Fund for 2010. So the first item is what we call a trial balance, and this is in the format that's prescribed by the state of Michigan. So if it's something that you can't follow, or if it doesn't make sense, well, that's the way we've been doing it for forever. Actually, since about 1968, to be exact. But this is what the Parks and Recreation Fund looks like in our accounting system for the county. It's a separate fund. It is a special revenue fund, and you can see that it has a number of accounts. This is a typical trial balance that has balance sheet accounts, the cash accounts, for example, some payables, accounts payable, and then a term or an account that we're probably the most concerned with is the fund balance. This fund does have its own fund balance. And then there's revenue and expenditure control totals. And I believe during the year, when you have your regular meetings, you're provided with revenue and expenditure status reports that give a lot of detail on the transactions, from the personnel costs to supply costs to any maybe major consulting or larger type projects that you might be doing in your Parks and Recreation Fund. And what this shows here is it's a snapshot. It's one point in time, and that point in time is December 31st, 2010. These are final numbers. They're not audited at this point. Our auditors will come in about a month, and they could propose adjustments to the numbers that you have here, but that's usually not the case. We do a pretty good job of having our financial house in order. You do see here, in terms of just one account, it's called the revenue control and the expenditure control. That is the total of all of your revenue line items for the revenue control. We're not looking at any departments. It's taking all of the revenue that comes into this fund and it puts it in one account. And the same is true for the expenditures. All of the expenditures that were recorded in this fund are included in this account for this trial balance. What I tried to do then to give, I wanted to be concise. I didn't want to bore you with a lot of detail. And so the next page summarizes the activity, the revenue and expenditure activity, in a little different format. I wanted to show the budget for the year, and this is done on a department basis. The top half of the report is the revenue part of the budget, and the bottom half is the expenditure part of the fund's budget. And if you look at the revenues on the top, the first column shows the initial budget with any amendments to the budget during the year, so those are final budget amounts. The middle column shows the revenue for that respective department. And then the third column shows a variance, how we did in terms of actual compared to budget. And this is a lot more concise than the detail that you're provided with during the year. I mean, this is something I think that you can get your arms around a little bit easier. However, because it's concise, it tends to maybe cause more questions than even I would have answers for tonight. But I thought it was one way to show in a very concise summary how the Parks and Recreation did fund by the departments and the programs that you have. The same format is followed for the expenditures below. We're showing the budget, and that's the final budget with any amendments during the year compared to the actual expenditures. And then there is a variance, simply comparing the expenditures with the budget. And each variance obviously has an explanation. I don't want to spend a lot of time on all of the variances, but the summary that's at the top, where it shows total revenues compared to total expenditures, you can see we were under budget in terms of the revenue, which that potentially could raise a lot of questions, but we were also under in terms of the total expenditures that were budgeted for the year. And fortunately, the expenditures being under budget helped offset the revenues that were under budget, and it actually added to your fund balance. And that was more easily identified on the initial trial balance that you have. The revenues were $731,000 compared to expenditures of $716,000. So the performance for the year, revenues greater than expenditures, typically in a governmental type setting, that's a very positive thing. So in effect, with the information here, you added $14,000 $868 to your fund balance. I do want to walk through some of the variances real quick to explain that they're not necessarily a bad thing. The first one, the Parks and Recreation Commission, the majority of the revenue in the actual column is the county appropriation. The variance, might ask, well, why did we come up $105,000 short? That department within the Parks and Recreation Fund had a revenue budgeted of $104,000 for fund balance. The budget plan for the year had potentially a use of fund balance of just about $105,000. The fund balance, when you use it in a budget, it never becomes an actual revenue because it's something you've accumulated over time. In effect, you didn't need that fund balance to operate. You operated on all of the other revenues and the county appropriation that was made to this fund. And because you stayed under the expenditure budget in total, you had an improvement in your fund balance. So the next page kind of summarizes that even in a different fashion. I'm showing here, you started 2010 with a fund balance of $171,358. I'm showing the revenues, which you can trace those amounts back to your trial balance or the middle page. And basically, the revenues are added to the fund balance, and then you subtract the expenditures to come at to arrive at the end of the year fund balance. The information below that shows that the budget for Parks and Rec included a budgeted use of fund balance, and it was a large use. That use was almost $105,000. Had that occurred, you would not have, the year-ending fund balance that you had. But because you actually added to your fund balance, that's a favorable budget variance of almost $120,000. And granted, when you look at the expenditures, like I said, there's a lot of reasons for that. There may have been programs that were not operated at the level that was anticipated in the budget. You may have had major expenditures that you planned on doing that were put off or that you were not able to get to. The baseball program is a good example. That was a first-year program for the Parks and Recreation Department, and from the numbers that are here, we budgeted a little bit on the high side for that program. The Civic Center pool, I know that is a topic of discussion on a regular basis. I just wanted to remind the Parks and Recreation Commission that you kind of started the year a little bit behind there because the county board actually reduced their appropriation to the Parks and Recreation Fund by $50,000 and expected the pool to make up that difference. Well, from the numbers here, you can see that the revenues were actually higher for the pool than were budgeted by $27,292, which is a good thing. And I can't explain all of that variance. You'd have to have Jason and Kim explain that. But below the line on the expenditure side of that budget, you had a favorable budget variance as well. Your expenditures came in at $35,892 under budget. So, that's a positive swing in the budget. And I think those are signs that, you're doing, some things right at the pool. Not to say that we, maybe have other things that we need to do. But overall, the financial performance for the Parks and Recreation Fund is definitely positive. There's a lot of information here that's hidden in the numbers, and like I said, I want to caution that you really don't get the true sense of where you had pluses and minuses unless you look at that line item detail. But when you can add to your fund balance in a year where you planned on using a significant amount of your fund balance, that's generally a pretty good thing. Now, perhaps there were things that you planned on doing that you didn't do, and you'll need to revisit those, but you've got a fairly good fund balance to start 2011 with, and there is some ability to use that. It obviously supports budgets for years to come, provided you use it and make sure you're, operating within your overall budget. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for. I'm certainly not. Go ahead.
Dean, what would be a reasonable fund balance for a budget this size to maintain annually?
Every fund is different. The county general fund, there are standards. No two auditors will tell you the same thing. There's a fund, a special revenue fund, because you have an ongoing focus here. I mean, you're trying to maintain programs for years into the future. This fund, you don't anticipate this fund to go away. 10% is probably a really good, high fund balance. That's probably higher than it needs to be. The county general fund, we need to maintain a higher fund balance. We're more in that 18 to 22% range. The annual budget here, I didn't look at the budget for 2011. I don't know what the total budget is, but I would dare to say that at the $186,000 level, you have a very, very good fund balance.
Just to let the commission know, that's a 21.7% fund balance if you base that on the 2010 figures.
I would assume your budget for 2011 is a little lower, though, than the 2010 budget, so. No, that's a very healthy fund balance.
Commissioner Doria?
Mr. Chairman, we've had a lot of discussion over the last few months about our package that we get. Dean, I'm sure you're aware, we have like a 17-page printout. And we formed a finance subcommittee, part of whose purpose is to look at coming up with some kind of a report that's a little bit more understandable to this body here. The chairman of that subcommittee is not here tonight, that's Kevin. But if it's not too presumptuous, I'd suggest that maybe we involve Mr. Bott in those conversations. It might save a lot of time. It's clear to me in my short time on the board here that there are constraints on departments at the county, and maybe this is the guy that we need to talk to about what's possible and what's not. We're just looking for a more understandable report that we can read and understand where we're significantly under budget or over budget and why.
But that is definitely a fair request, and I would be more than willing to help with that. I struggled this afternoon. I put this off until the last minute. Well, I never know how much information to provide.
Exactly.
Well, when we run the revenue and expenditure status reports, I'd be the first one to tell you that's too much detail. That's for people like me to worry about in terms of how but at a level where you can understand how the programs are performing or where they're at, no two programs are on the same cycle either over the course of the year, but you do need to have something that's easier to not only compile on a monthly basis, but for you to review at your meetings. So I would be very willing to help with that.
That's good.
Couple questions. Dean, does the revenue, you told me that in March of this year we received a $16,000 check in revenue at the pool that really was for rent in 2010, which is not a problem if you get that money every year in March. My question is, did you back that $16,000 of revenue out of this revenue number?
No, I did not. And I believe what happened there, we had some 2009 revenue that was received after we had closed the books, and I believe you pointed that out to us, brought it to our attention, but it was clearly 2009 revenue. I did not have the auditors push that back to 2000.
Okay, I was just
No,
curious.
it is in the number here, I mean, in terms of the year-to-date actual revenue. And that could cause, I mean, since it's in the revenue, it is causing that positive variance to be higher than it
The other
should be.
question I have for you is, I do a spreadsheet, as you know, because I do it from your printouts, and I'm showing that really the 80% of the savings was in supplies and miscellaneous. Salaries was about 20% of the $100,000.
Okay.
That's what I'm showing. But when I took a look at it, something jumped out at me, and I'm just curious. We, for the Parks and Rec Commission, for salaries, traditionally, since 2007, through the initial budget of 2010, for salaries, the Parks and Rec Commission was charged approximately $18,000, $19,000. That jumped, the actual, that jumped. There apparently was a budgeted adjustment to $29,000 for 2010. Where did that extra $9,000 come from?
I believe the majority of that was for, there was a clerk hired, but also part-time, temporary to cover some full-time, reductions in staff. But I would need to look at that in more detail.
Don't look at it. I mean, I was just curious if you knew.
Not without,
I mean, don't look at it for me.
okay.
I can actually clear that up. For myself and for Marilyn, the wages and benefits are broken up amongst various departments. Through 2010, we were looking at some of those departments, and it's roughly determined, or it's loosely determined on the amount of time spent within each of those departments. And leading up to 2010, there was a lot of Maryland's salary came from, or a lot of Maryland's wages came from Twin Lakes, and a lot of my wages came from, I want to say, the Nature Education Reserve. So we kind of looked at the breakdown of our time, and where are we spending the lion's share of our time, and a lot of the increase went from some of those other outside parks to Parks and Recreation Commission for things like our evening meetings that are, we're paying wages for at this time. For additional meetings, we have more meetings now and over the past couple of years than we have in previous years. So we reallocated those resources more appropriately based on the day-to-day operations.
But wouldn't that just be, aren't you saying that you just move money from different columns?
From one department to another.
Okay, and are you asking about a $9,000 increase in a particular column or in the total?
No, it was charged to the Parks and Rec Commission. It wasn't there in the initial budget, but it
Okay.
was,
So it's a column change?
so, yeah.
That-
So I was just curious.
That's something we have to do in conjunction with, on occasion, HR will notify us that something's unusual here, and that's really what led to the question. It's something that we worked with both Human Resources and the Finance Department to reallocate the resources.
All right, any further questions? All right.
Should I talk to Kevin? Is it Kevin McCallier then, who's on?
Scott, you're on that committee,
Yeah,
right?
I believe I'm chairman, so we'll be
Oh, I'm
sending out
sorry.
an email prior to the March commission meeting, so we agreed to meet at 3:30 prior to the commission meeting.
My apologies.
So we wanted to hold off until March because we have a 6-month time window, so March, we'll run into our next budgeting period.
Keep me posted.
Okay. Dean also does a lot with the budgeting process, so if any commissioners have questions about the budgeting process, the hearings and things like that in front of the Board of Commissioners, this is a great opportunity to ask Dean any questions you have about the county's overall budgeting process.
And just, I do want to go back to we did make a major budget amendment to the pool budget, but when Jason and I talked to that, and, you know, I clearly did not want to keep that from the Parks and Recreation Commission, but our goal there was to not increase the overall parks budget. We did not increase the parks budget in total, and we tried to cover that with line item adjustments within the pool budget that was approved. And I know that whole issue of, you know, who really adopts the budget and what say or what role this commission plays. I think you're going to be discussing that here over the course of the year, and I will offer whatever assistance I can to that process. And I certainly do not make budget amendments and hide them from anyone. I thought what we did there was okay, and if I offended anyone, I apologize. That was not the intent.
Are you good, Scott? Yeah. Okay.
Is there going to be any more discussion on the budget reporting to us later?
Later today, probably not.
Yeah.
Once the subcommittee starts meeting and coming up with their ideas, then they'll have recommendations for us.
I would just, the class that I attended, given by North Sky, in that handout, or the PowerPoint presentation, I felt that the recommendations that they made in terms of the kind of presentations that should be given, financial presentations should be given to boards, were really good in terms of giving us something that's workable and understandable. And they also recommended that it be presented with some written text, explanations and things like that. And so I would just hope that seemed very sensible, the recommendations, and I hope that we would kind of utilize them as a focus point in some degree. I wonder if you have a copy of that?
Yeah, and I think everyone received a copy last
Yeah, I was wondering if you could share them with Mr. Bott, and if he could look at them and comment, and provide a comment then to the committee in terms of what he feels their usability is.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
All right, next item of business is the consent calendar. The consent calendar, well, first I'll entertain any additions to the agenda as was given to us in our package. I would like to add a discussion about the baseball contract with the American Legion. We'll put that as item number 3 under new business. Are there any additional additions to the agenda that any commissioner or member of the public would like to?
I have some things I'd like to hand out, but not to be discussed or anything, for the commissioners to take home with them and use or not use.
Right.
At the end of the meeting?
End of the meeting would be fine. I have that
Thanks.
written down, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Dorier.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd suggest that your new addition, the baseball program, if it's okay with the rest of the commission here, that we talk about that as number 1 under new business,
Okay,
and then just move everything down a notch.
that would be fine with that.
I think that might make more sense.
Okay. Yes, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, according to our board rules, we need to vote on anything that is added to our agenda this evening, and it needs to pass by 2/3 of a majority of the board. So I would move that we add baseball under new business.
Thank you. Thank you, you're exactly right. The motion has been made to add the American Legion baseball contract to the agenda as item number 1 under new business. Motion by Max Bauer, seconded by Taylor. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor of adding Baseball contract is item number 1 under new business to the agenda. State aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. American Legion baseball contract is added as item number 1 under new business. The current items number 1 and 2 are slipped down to items 2 and 3. All right. Under the receive and file, this evening we have the Lutra report, performance metrics report, scholarship committee report, rules committee report, pool RFQ, the 2011 budget report, communications, and Parks Commission meeting per diem. Are there any items that any commissioner would like to see removed from the receive and file?
Move we approve the consent calendar as submitted.
All right, I would like to remove 3 items for discussion. Item number 1, the Lutra report. Item number 2, the performance metrics report. And item number 5, the pool RFQ. All right. So those are removed, those 3 items.
I will move to approve the consent calendar as amended.
Support.
All right, moved by Dorn, supported by Karstens. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries to remove those 3 items and receive and file the rest. All right. All right, approvals, Park and Recreation Commission minutes from the January meeting.
I think that was part of what was approved from the, as the part of the consent calendar.
All right. Okay, I saw that it's a different item. I apologize for that. Then I do have some corrections to the minutes from January that Commissioner McKellier forwarded to me in his absence. Would there be any objections to then also removing the minutes for discussion of corrections to the minutes?
No objection here.
Okay, hearing no objections, then that will also be discussed. Now, under item F, items removed from the consent calendar. All right, so first item, the Lutra report. Overwhelmed by my stack of papers here. All right, I asked this item to be removed. Just a couple of questions for Kim. A question on item number 15, which says to establish additional benefits to membership. Last in progress date was shown as October of 2010. Can you give me an update about what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I've been kind of holding off as the commission has talked about changing the fees of the pool and everything. But a couple of, the 2 main benefits that I'd like to see the commission maybe look at doing is if and when we look at the fee structure, possibly adding a registration fee. It would be an annual fee, 1 per household. It could be as low as, $20. I know that ice skating and hockey do something very similar. And that would be something that if you have a membership with the pool, that registration fee would be waived. The other thing that I see kind of standing out, which again would be when we discuss fees, would be right now we sell a pool membership and then we sell water exercise memberships. The water exercise memberships are specifically only for the water exercise class. They do pay a higher fee, and I would like to see that we add the lap swims and open swims in with that. So those are the kind of where I'm at with that right now.
Okay. I also had questions about item 17 and item 18. Item 17, reduce hourly labor expenses. Item 18, reevaluate full-time positions. From my viewpoint, it looks like we've done, you've focused a lot of attention on reducing hourly labor expenses. And as well, we have looked at our full-time positions, reevaluated that, discussed that in detail about the union constraints on that, and a new union contract has been let. I would see those items as being completed at this point. Obviously, you keep constant attention on reducing hourly labor expenses.
Absolutely.
Just wondered what your thoughts were on closing those items out.
Well, reducing the hourly labor expense, every time I write a schedule, every time I plan programming, that's something that I'm looking at. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. I guess I wouldn't want to put date completed because it's never going to be a completed project. But, maybe putting ongoing in that so that you know that I am constantly watching that. We did in 2010 reduce what a starting lifeguard and what a starting WSI comes in at by almost $2 an hour. So it's hard to make any more big significant changes to something like that. So I would feel comfortable putting ongoing. And yeah, as for the reevaluate full-time positions, that's all really within the hands of the county board and how they negotiate the union labor contracts. So I would feel confident putting closed on that. It's kind of out of my control.
Okay, just want to make sure I understood that. A few more items on the second page of the matrix. Item number 45 at the bottom, updates play options in the shallow area. In progress, last date is February of 2010. I wonder what your assessment of that item has been, or what your thoughts were.
Without doing anything big and structurally to the pool, we don't have a ton of options. One thing that I had put in for the budget was for a little slide, a little portable one that we could slide back and forth when it was time for open swim or maybe the last day of lessons to let kids use it. And that obviously got nixed from the budget. So I'm kind of at a standstill with that as to needing funding in order to be able to make some big improvements to that shallow water.
Okay, Commissioner Maxbauer?
Well, something you just said, Kim. Number 4 says eliminate division between open swim, senior swim, and lap swim, and you just mentioned open swim. Did we not do that? Eliminate the division between those?
What we used,
I know we discontinued senior, but I was just...
Yeah, and maybe I read it wrong in the Lutra report, but one of the things with that was senior swim only, open swim only, and lap swim only.
Mm-hmm.
We almost always open a lap lane during the laps or the open swim so that somebody can come in and lap swim. So we've just made it more accommodating for people to come in, and it's hard to make a lap swim accommodating to open swim, but we do our best.
Thank you.
All right, item 46, establish special events. I know we certainly did some new things at the pool this past year.
We did.
And I wondered what your assessment was of your success last year with that, and what your general plans are for the year. Not specifically, this, and this, but just in general, what do you have in mind for coming year?
Well, I'd like to continue the 2 big events that we started last year, which were the underwater egg hunt, which I'm already in the planning processes for that, and the trunk or treat. I'm just looking at getting more community partnerships and involvement with those things to help make those events more successful. There's no money budgeted to any of that, and so it's simply on beg, borrow, and steal, more so begging, to see what we can get to come in, who we can get to partner with, and work on those. I would love to see us do a family triathlon, where we do it on the Civic Center grounds, but I'm thinking more of next year for that, not this year. I want to see if I can build up some of those community relationships with the events that we've already started.
Okay. Same question with regard to item 47, additional marketing. I know your marketing budget is small, and it's something that was a little bit new for us, marketing for the pool. Can you talk about how you felt last year went and what you're going to do differently or the same for this year?
Yeah, last year we spent a lot of the money doing insider ads in the Insider newspaper. They were kind of hit and miss, so I'm looking at doing some additional options with them this year, maybe not running quite as many ads and focusing some of that money maybe on like a mail drop with our program guide or something like that.
Okay, Commissioner Maxmeyer?
As long as you mentioned marketing, actually, this idea was mentioned to me by the county administrator, who happens to be sitting here. We have one marketing person in Grand Traverse County, and he works for Resource Recovery. And I don't know whether, whether the board would want to weigh in on this or not, but anyway, I just thought I'd toss it out there that, you know, I don't know, maybe part of our marketing budget could go towards him. You know, I mean, he is an expert in marketing, so I'm just tossing it out there. And it wasn't my idea.
Thank you.
But I thought it was a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for that information. Next item pulled from the receive and file is a performance metrics report. And with the report that Dean Bont gave, I think I understand this. I had a question for you, Jason, regarding the top section there with the Easling Pool and the numbers. With the year-to-date, do you know, are those closeout numbers December 31st? Are those numbers from mid-December?
Those are closed out numbers.
Okay. And so then the projected numbers below that?
Those were actually budgeted numbers.
Okay.
Those weren't an actual projection as we continue through 2011. The projected, as you can see, the two lines below that, we show projected, that's actually budgeted. Moving forward, you'll see that line actually be a projected number versus the end-of-year budget as it's presented for our 2011 budget.
Okay. All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the performance metrics, it shows total pool attendance, for instance, for January 2011 at 4,464. If I am a daily swimmer, am I counted 30 times in that number?
No, we keep track of the pool numbers every hour for how many people are in the pool, and there's a total given at the end of the day.
Okay, but...
And so those totals are added up for the month.
So in other words...
If you swim on Monday and Tuesday, you're counted twice.
And if I swim every day for 30 days, I'm counted 30 times.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. The next item that I had a question about was the pool RFQ. And Commissioner Maxbauer, are you the chair of that subcommittee?
Well, actually, we don't have a chair.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to comment on it. We did not meet in January, and it was primarily due to my illness.
Okay. All right. Can you just talk briefly about your plans going forward and sort of what your projected timetable is?
Yes. I have been, before I got sick, and now working on a draft RFQ, basically just changes that we discussed in a meeting. And I'm going to bring those changes back to the subcommittee. Commissioner Joseph is taking care of the business plan aspect of it, and hopefully we will be meeting soon.
Okay, and then longer term, then at the completion of your work on the subcommittee, what product will we receive as a commission?
We will bring it here to this board.
Okay.
For consideration and input.
Okay. All right, good. All right.
Did I mention anything that you disagree with?
No.
Okay.
All right.
We've had a little turnover on the committee.
Yes.
John was originally on the committee.
Yes. All right. On to the next item then. The Park and Rec Commission meeting minutes from January's meeting. Again, Commissioner McKellier forwarded me some some corrections that he would like to see or that he would recommend. Get to the right page here, so I'm speaking about the right thing. All right, page 37 of our packet, under roll call, Commissioners Larson and Mancass were absent and excused. He didn't see that annotated and like to add that in. Additionally, upon his review of the video, he suggested adding under the public comment section, I'm sorry, that's under item H. Special orders of business. The three final speakers, George Powell, John Kelly, and Leah Singer, adding where they were from. He said George Powell from Peninsula Township, John Kelly from Interlochen, and Leah Singer from Traverse City. The next change he recommended was under item K. On page 42, under the motion, the top paragraph there, page 42, motion by Max Bauer, second by McKellier to create a finance committee, but suggested a friendly amendment to the motion. He stated the committee should be a budget committee and/or a finance committee that would take 3 to 6 months to create tasks. He would recommending to delete the word create and insert the word complete, to complete tasks related to the budget creation, submittal, reporting, and monitoring process. And the final input that he had was at the end of that section, the budget committee members will be Kevin McKellier, Bill Doria, Christine Max Bauer, and Scott Joseph, with Joseph to call the meetings, to add the words with Joseph to call the meetings. Those are the changes that he submitted. So I will make a motion that those amendments be made to the minutes from the January meeting. Support. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Those changes to the minutes. Do you you have all those, Marilyn?
I'm sorry, the second on that motion?
Second was Commissioner Joseph.
And your question, Mr. Larson?
I'm sorry?
You had a question?
Yeah, did you get all those
Yes.
changes? Wonderful.
So if I'm to understand, then you would like it mentioned at the beginning of the minutes who was absent separately? Because it's mentioned under every motion who was absent.
Yes, that seems appropriate under attendance to mention
very
that. I understand your point. All right, next item of business is policy governance. This is an item for discussion. I don't have a specific motion to bring before the commission at this time. I would like to throw out my ideas about the Carver policy, our movement towards that, governance policy, and moving forward on that. I'm interested in your comments and your inputs as well. We all labored through the Carver text and recognized that the Carver model holds 4 different categories of policies: ends policies, executive limitations policy, governance policy, and what they called board CEO linkage. I renamed that to commissioner or commission director linkage to fit the terminology that we use. I've been working with Bob Carsons on this, we're still in the process of writing policy, and then once that policy is written, we'll submit it for public, or for this commission's approval. My intention then from there is to incorporate it into the bylaws. As I look through the bylaws, I don't see anything that conflicts directly with that, and my fear is that if we just make a document and then set it aside, the document has no power, no lasting ability, and as soon as, over time, every 3 years, we add new commissioners, and eventually that document will become meaningless. So I would like to add it into the bylaws and make that a part of our codified policies and procedures. At that point, once we've reached agreement on how that wording should be and what should be included and what should not be included, then it would go up to the Board of Commissioners, the County Board of Commissioners, for their approval in the normal procedures of approving bylaw changes. Some of the sections, some of these 4 different policy types, some of them are relatively simple and non-controversial, the governance policy being one of them. Some of them are much more difficult to achieve. The ends policy I see as a major item for discussion that is not something that I can simply write and give to you and you'll all go aye, and we'll carry on with that. There'll be plenty of discussion, and the linkage policy as well has a number of tenets that may be more difficult to arrive at. Reporting on that, perhaps it was last month that Bob Carsons and I, and Jason as well, met with County Administrator Dennis Aloya. Honestly, I was expecting a fair amount of pushback in the meeting and difficulty in reaching a consensus on particularly the Commissioner Director linkage policy, and I found that to not be at all the case. I found Mr. Aloya to be very open to our moving forward towards a Carver model and working with us as a commission in our relationship with Jason Jones, the director, and the fact that he serves as the director's immediate supervisor. And I felt very positive about that. Clearly, what we write into our policies puts some requirements on the County Board of Commissioners, and we recognize that there may be some challenges there in reaching full agreement with the Board of Commissioners on that. I'm optimistic, though, that we can come up with a document that will be good for this commission, good for the Parks and Recs Department, good for the Grand Traverse County as well. I do want to talk a little bit about ends policy now, and the ends policy that we came up with, we worked very hard last year, and I thought we made excellent progress towards laying out what our priorities were as a board, and then prioritizing what we came up with 50 or 60 things that we wanted to do, and then we prioritized the top 9 and laid them out as objectives for this year. If you look at those carefully at those objectives, they tend to be almost maintenance-oriented or cleanup-oriented in tightening the way we do business. There isn't a lot of grand vision stuff there on what is our function here, what is our purpose, where are we going in 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, where are we headed? And that's really what ends policy is. Ends policy, the foundation of really the Carver model, is what do we do and who do we do it for and at what cost? Big picture, why do we as a commission exist? What does the Park and Rec Department for Grand Traverse County, what does it do? What is our objective? So I'll throw out to you this statement that is just sort of a broad statement and say, as an example of ends policy, something like, to provide recreational opportunities for the citizens of Grand Traverse County at an acceptable cost to the taxpayers. Now, that doesn't give a lot of specific direction, but what it does set out is an example of what is our purpose for being. And each of those words, you can argue about those words or decide what the best words are. For instance, if you change to provide recreational opportunities to something like to provide fitness opportunities, that changes what you're going to do going forward and what types of projects you want to put your time and effort and attention and money into. If you want to change the word opportunities to something like to provide recreational facilities, well, that is a completely different mission than providing recreational opportunities. Going on to the for whom part, for the citizens of Grand Traverse County, might be appropriate as responsive to the taxpayers, but maybe that's not really who we're aiming at. Maybe we want to be wider. It's fine with me if people from Leelanau County and Antrim County or wherever else, visitors that come to our resort community use our facilities as well. And maybe it's for citizens and visitors, or maybe it's for all people. And so how we set those words changes what we do in forming our vision for what the future is. And then Carver strongly recommends that you associate a cost with that. And there are lots of things we as a commission can do. We'll talk about costs later on today. One viewpoint is to make this a business, the Park and Recreation business, where our revenues need to match our expenditures so that we are not a load on the taxpayer of any kind, and that we pay our own way in everything that we do. That's one philosophy of how you set your ends policy. The other is that we're a service department that wants to encourage everyone to engage in recreation, to engage in fitness, whatever the words are we come up with, and that we don't charge anything for any of our services, and it's all a government function in providing the pool for free to anyone who wants to come at any time, or providing the facilities for use for free so that we don't put any load on the groups that use them, and that we just provide services. And so the words that we pick for those types of things, again, decide the future that we go. What are we going to do, for whom, and at what cost? Now that's the sample statement that I read is really sort of grand ends policy, and these policies also go down into sub-levels. And so we can set sub-policies that say something like we're going to operate the pool at less than a $100,000 difference between expenses and revenues on that. We can set those numbers. We can say that we're going to provide, aquatics opportunities or whatever at this cost, and we can set cost targets that we will then structure our programs to try to achieve by both providing the programs and to do it by not exceeding a certain cost. We can set ends policy that is a very specific program, for instance, to teach every child in Grand Traverse County how to swim. Those are ends policies that we as a commission need to set so that we as a department can go forward and achieve the vision that we've been selected to identify as members of the community serving on a public service board like this. So that's the end of my soapbox on ends policy. We need to move forward on this, and I feel that ends policy is really, it's really the anchor upon which everything else is based. It's the foundation, and it's not going to be an easy one with 10 people with different ideas about where to go, but I'd like to start moving towards that. This is not the same as, I'm not starting another strategic planning process like we did last summer. This is really a grander picture, but it certainly is going to tie into what we do with our strategic objectives for the next year. So if you have thoughts and ideas, and I would love to hear thoughts and ideas from every single commissioner, please send those by email to Commissioner Carstens and myself by the end of the month. So by midnight on the 28th of February, send us your ideas on what you think the purpose of the Park and Rec Department should be, and the Park and Rec, the entire what should Grand Traverse County Park and Rec Department do. Send those ideas, and I'll start to see some patterns. We'll have some great ideas, and we'll start to move forward on some recommendations for ends policies. Second thing we'll do, I had disseminated back in the December meeting some draft copies of the governance policy that I'd written up, and I would like to discuss that in detail at the March meeting. So the next meeting we'll get together. If you don't have a copy, if you deleted that one, then I've got additional copies here that you can look at. And again, to me, non-controversial types of policies just on how we're going to run our board. But I'd like to start moving forward on this to try to achieve consensus and perhaps a little more efficiency and focus. All right. That's my soapbox. That's my discussion. I'm open to comments and suggestions at this time.
Well, at the Michigan Recreation and Parks Association, I heard other directors do exactly this in determining, and I guess I heard different levels. I'm going to just touch on cost. I heard, and I think Commissioner Karstens was in the same one I was in. I heard one director say, well, I sit down with my board every year, and they have a pool, and we decide that what percentage we are going to subsidize the pool at. And she said it's generally around 50%. And I think it would, and quite honestly, I think we ought to take a look at doing something like that as far as cost goes, because, clearly Twin Lakes costs money. How much are we willing to subsidize that? Because as I see this board's role, it's to recommend fees. So that's just my thought. That's it.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Moving on to the next item, which is under new business, and that is the American Legion baseball contract. Jason, would you like to handle that?
Sure. Myself, Pete Doran, and Al Larson met on Tuesday to kind of work on an agreement and some terms to lay out to American Legion for the upcoming baseball season. Actually, let me take a step further back. The County Commission made their decision to, on January 26th, the County Commission made a decision to forego or forgive the 2009 debt that American Legion owed Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation, to give them the baseball equipment that we purchased last year, as well as only charge 50% of the actual cost associated with maintaining the fields for the 2011 season. So I contacted Mark Greiner, my contact person with American Legion, on February 28th, suggesting that he and I sit down, discuss things, and discuss how the 2011 season was going to move forward. On February 9th, while I was at the MRPA conference, Dennis Aloya received an email from Mark Greiner, and it was sent to Dennis Aloya and Larry Inman, suggesting that that American Legion know by 10 a.m. this morning whether or not they would have a 5-year agreement to run baseball at the Civic Center. Obviously, with our meeting this evening, that was something we were unable to guarantee, because that is something, as an agreement, needs to come to this board. I've worked with Dennis Aloya, and he suggested that I work with Al and Pete to move towards an agreement for the 2011 baseball season with American Legion. That brings me up to speed. On Tuesday, Pete and I met at Pete's office to kind of outline some of the things that we'd like to see in that agreement. So, and I can read those off to you. I've kind of outlined those, and right now what I've done is I've sent them to Bob Cooney for him to review and to offer any suggestions that he may have, or offer any suggestions he may see, or any outline any problems he may see. So in addition to the three ideas that, or the three tenets that we have set by the Board of Commissioners, we've also identified that American Legion identify a qualified program manager for the program. Evaluations be conducted at the end of the season and provided to the Parks and Recreation Director. That American Legion identifies and implements a conflict resolution plan for coaches, parents, or players, officials, and sponsors. That they perform nationwide background checks for each head coach and the main assistant coach. So at least one assistant coach gets a nationwide background check per team. That the agreement between American Legion and Grand Traverse Parks and Recreation be for the 2011 season only, and that all other standard contract provisions apply as we would have outlined within our T-Bays and ICE agreements, as well as Grand Traverse County being named an additional insured for at least $1 million. There were some management issues that came to mind late in the evening on Tuesday. I contacted Al about those, and he suggested that I run these by Cooney as well. And these are more managerial-based things in order for Grand Traverse County to do a better job in supplying the fields and supplying the resources for the baseball program and providing a successful baseball program. And those items are American Legion will provide a full season schedule at the beginning of the season. American Legion maintains at a minimum a phone hotline for participants to call related to cancellations. That American Legion or their program manager will email both Parks and Recreation Director as well as our Parks and Recreation Secretary in the event of a cancellation. That way we know the actual number of games. It's easy for us to track at the end of the season for billing purposes, the number of games that were canceled. In the event cancellations come early enough, we could not prep those fields, thereby saving some time for our facilities staff and eliminating some costs associated with the program. American Legion reports to Grand Traverse County within 10 days upon the completion of the season, the number of games that they have charted, or the number of games that they have accounted for being played throughout the season. That way we can kind of reconcile the numbers we have, make sure there are no conflicts, and an invoice be sent out in an appropriate time frame. Use of the Civic Center meeting room will be free to the American Legion with a 48-hour notice to schedule the room, pending no other scheduling conflicts within the room. And the use of Howe Arena in the event they opt to use that for any type of practice or evaluations would actually be at the published rate versus a free rate. These, as I mentioned, these have been sent to Bob Cooney for his review and any comments or any problems that he sees with these terms. It was our intent in our meeting on Tuesday to establish the terms with American Legion before we actually draft a full-blown final agreement for approval by Parks and Recreation Commission and the American Legion.
All right, so this is not asking for, this is not approving that document. Those are just the inputs that we gave to Bob Cooney so that he could draw out the document and get this thing moving as we're finding ourselves behind again based on the sequence of events that have occurred. So you'll see that document again as when it becomes a final product. Commissioner Clark?
That's just my question. Will we see that at our next meeting then?
Next meeting, I can't say that for sure. I would expect so. But,
it's my hope that we can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner McNamara?
Have you, I don't know, I cannot speak for the county board, and I am not speaking for the county board, but my instinct tells me that there are some things that you mentioned, and I couldn't write quite fast enough, Jason, so I'm sorry I didn't get the list, but there are some items that you've mentioned that I don't know that the county board will care for. So this is just a suggestion. Have you considered maybe including, I know, Al, you as chair, you were in on this discussion, and, as our vice chair, Mr. Doran was, but have you considered maybe including in this discussion perhaps Commissioner Fleece or Commissioner Gilman, or who made the motion? I mean, because what I'm fearing from what I've heard, we do not have a contract like this with anyone else. We certainly don't have it, and granted, the contract with Friends of Ice for Howe Ice Arena was, a 15-year contract. It was done 10 years ago. And we certainly don't do everything the way we used to, nor should we. But I guess if there's a time element involved here, if we want to make a recommendation in a way that it will be positively received to the county board. It's just a suggestion that perhaps you consider including one of those commissioners in your meeting as you discuss this.
Commissioner Doran?
These are just some things that we think are low-key and would be good for any user contract. I think that the Commissioner Maxbauer is right, that the evaluation end of it is, to have some evaluation from the coaches and the players. That's not in any of the other contracts, but I think it's something we'd like to see as those contracts come up for renewal. This is not any kind of just, here it is, this is absolute. I mean, these are things that we'd like to negotiate with the American Legion. They may be things that they can't do, that we've got to modify, and other things that we have to discuss. But we felt a sense of urgency to take the first step because of the email that Mr. Aloya got from the Legion. I mean, they legitimately need to get going on this, and we legitimately need to, make commitments. So I think it was a timing thing more than anything else, Christine, that we just wanted to get the ball going.
And I don't
and
object to that.
and it is
I'm not being critical of you in any way.
No, I know you're not, but it should not at all be taken by anyone, especially the guys at the Legion and those organizations as, here it is, these are demands or something. These are just ideas that we'd like to see in the contract. They should be workable, but if they're not, we're going to discuss them and try to get something workable so kids have a baseball program this summer. Dave?
I'm just looking at you.
Oh.
This isn't in any way trying to give the Legion a rough time because...
Absolutely not. We just got to get going.
I think they're great suggestions, and they're all items that we did as a commission. Jason did as the director, so...
Right. And we made I think that when Al and I and Jason were talking, we made a conscious decision that this is the county board has spoken, the Legion is going to run the baseball program. We want them to run it. But we do have to have some kind of a contract with them, and there does have to be some kind of a document, and we need to get started on that. Is that right, Al?
Absolutely. Nor was it our intent to lay so many restrictions on the Legion that it was unable for them to run their program. Again, we want to stay out of how they run their program. We do still feel that due diligence is appropriate for that there be appropriate protections for the children, and was primarily what it was about. So we put those forward, and I suppose it's worth a conversation with some of the Board of Commissioner members to convey that message.
Well, what piqued me was when I heard the idea of a survey, because I have heard from 3 commissioners that they don't think that we ought to ask for a survey. And I will tell, I'm just passing it on.
Sure.
And reason being, it's their program, it's not ours. So that's why I suggested perhaps, Commissioner Fleece or Commissioner Gilman or Commissioner Henschel, or, not necessarily me. And I quite honestly, I wouldn't care to be the commissioner that had the input. I would just as soon it be Commissioner Fleece or Gilman or Henschel or who else would I think Commissioner Thomas, but good luck on getting Commissioner Thomas to attend any more meetings than he already does.
Commissioner Dorier?
Yeah, I have a couple things to say. This list of I guess, suggestions is how I'd characterize them, if that's what we're going to do, if they're negotiable. And I support that. One idea that was kicked around after last year's program that Jason had was a coach's clinic. I think it's an excellent idea. I think as long as we're talking about this and suggesting things, I'd recommend that we add that to the list, and that we, if they need help in putting that on, we could help them. That's my first thing. My second remark I'd like to make is partially in response to what Commissioner Maxbauer just said. Well, American Legion is going to run the baseball program, that's clear. I support the American Legion as much as anybody. But I do have a problem with the county commissioners doing our job. Our job is Parks and Recreation. And when you read the resolution that empowers us, we've got a lot of power. I think we need to make recommendations. I think we can seek input from them, but I think they need to realize that Parks and Recreation is our field, and that we're doing the best we can, and that it's difficult to do it when they're overruling us and when they're establishing contracts and making agreements without even consulting us. So I'd recommend that we do the best we can to make the American Legion program work this year, but that we maintain that we are the Parks and Recreation Commission, and we need to be the ones that are setting the policy and administering the program. And that's all I have to say.
All right, out of this,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
If you,
Mr. Carson.
if you had something you wanted to respond to that he said first, I'll wait.
No, go ahead.
In terms of making a contract with them, I didn't hear any mention, so I'm assuming that everyone here acquiesces and maybe we have no choice, but it seemed in some degree our first public commenter mentioned a potential perception of something out of whack in terms of granting them the use of the field and the fact that they owe us money for the use of the field in previous years. That kind of a cost giveaway without asking us at all. That's an example of they're kind of doing our job. And it also smacks to me like reparations. And so I was told by a commissioner, a board member, that they were justified because we made a wrong decision. And that can be his opinion, but I'd like him to define then wrong. Because I think everybody here made a decision based on best intentions for the users of the field, for the baseball program, and based on the knowledge that was provided to us by the people who came to testify and asked for our support. So, and I have no knowledge of what their decisions were based on. But I think that was I feel like we're giving them reparations. And it's a slap in the face to us, and I don't think we made a wrong decision. We made a different one. We might not have made the best decision, but I don't know how you make that judgment. And so I see politics as being more part of that decision than anything else, and I resent that. So that's all I have to say.
Just by way of remembering, what we did was we made a recommendation to the county board. They made the decision to take over the baseball program, but an election happened, and new board members came in, and they disagreed with our recommendation and the previous decision of the County Board of Commissioners. And, while I would share some of the feelings here that, maybe they ought to have consulted with us and give us more deference, they're elected, and we're appointed. And they may make decisions we don't agree with and think are wrong, but they're higher up the food chain. And so that's the political way of life here. And, we have to try to continue on and do the best we can given the political climate.
Commissioner Dorier.
I agree with part of what you say. I disagree with part of what you say. For right now, I think we need to make this year's baseball program work. They made that decision, and we need to support them better than they support us. For the sake of the kids, 700 and some kids want to play baseball, or more, hopefully, and we need to make that work. But as far as what their role is and what food chain they're in, I don't agree with that. I think we have the power to contract. You read the resolution. There's a lot of power that was granted to us just last year in the updated resolution. I intend to talk about that at our joint meeting that's coming up on the 16th. There is one commissioner, I'm not going to put some words in anybody's mouth, but there is a commissioner who's made comments several times at their public meetings. We don't belong in this decision, we're overstepping our bounds, something to that effect. I subscribe to that line of thought.
Okay, and as part of this discussion, are there any motions on the table? Or would anyone like to make a motion? All right, hearing none, moving on to the next business. Facility rental user fee 50% reduction, Commissioner Dorier.
Yeah, I asked this to be put on, and we've kind of blended into that, haven't we?
Yes.
We're in a very precarious position here. There's a letter that came from the YMCA addressed to 2 commissioners and the county administrator that I forwarded to all of you from the YMCA. And it's a very eloquent letter. It's a very well-written letter, and it speaks to, what about us? You're given 50% discounts. They talk about how in 2009, they had a very bad year. They had to lay off staff, they had to cancel programs. If they were able to pay 50% of the cost of the fields, and they're a much higher fee user or fee payer than American Legion is, if they'd been granted that kind of a discount, then they could have provided more recreation opportunities to more youth and more families in this area. Now we have people from the pool are coming here, and they're saying, what about us? The position we're in is untenable. I don't suggest that I'm not going to offer any kind of a motion. I'm just saying that this is a big, big issue, and it's something I don't think the county commission figured on when they made their decision. I'm wondering how we're going to wrestle with this. Part of our responsibility is to make sure that the assets we're responsible for are open to everybody on an equal basis. We're going down a road here that makes it that it's not equal. Also, all the talk about burden on the taxpayers. What about all this money we just gave away? I don't understand that. So I look forward to our joint meeting. I want to urge all of the Parks and Rec commissioners to take a look at Resolution 82-2010. Take a look at the bylaws that are attached to it, and then take a look at the statute too, which is MCL 46.351. Jason, did you bring those?
Yeah, in anticipation of this conversation, I brought those, and I brought a copy of each for each commissioner.
All right.
The resolution 82-2010, I brought the rules and regulations, not specifically the actual resolution.
Okay. Well, all right, then good. So you're going to have a printed copy. I encourage you to read those before our joint session. What you'll see, particularly in the state statute, it's been around since the 1960s. Some of you know, I've got some background in Parks and Recreation. I attended Indiana University and I got a master's degree back in 1978. And around that time, a lot of states were passing statutes like this. And what the statute does is it enables county governments to form Parks and Recreation commissions such as ours. And it lists in the statute what the powers of that type of a commission can be and what the makeup needs to be. The makeup is dictated by state law, and that's why we have a road commissioner, a drain commissioner, a planning commissioner, and then 7 members of the public. It's really clear from that statute that one of the major purposes of the statute is to take the area of Parks and Recreation and insulate it from politics, like Bob was saying. This was clearly a political move. And I think what we need to do is take a look at our statute, take a look at our resolution, understand why we exist as a body, and then talk to the county commissioners about letting us do our job. That's all I have.
Commissioner Maxwell.
As long as we are talking about fees, if you go back in the minutes, probably, I bet you 2 years at least, I've been saying repeatedly that we need to sit down and we need to take a look at our fees as a commission. The fee structure that we have is ridiculous, in my opinion. Now, it may not be in someone else's, but in my opinion, it's ridiculous. you know, I can't, I know we recently, for instance, for instance, Kim, what is an annual individual membership at the pool?
I know a family's $333. I don't know what an individual is.
I think it's in the 170 range, somewhere.
Yeah.
Possibly.
189.
Yeah.
189.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marilyn. We are heavily subsidizing an individual swimmer, and we are barely subsidizing baseball. And, you know, the fees for members of the audience, the hourly rate for the pool was done by the former Parks Director years ago. It hasn't been looked at, to my knowledge, Jason.
Since 2008.
Thank you. You know, but it's too bad Dean Bott still isn't here, because I remember him telling me that they had a devil of a time, you know, trying to figure out, you know, what an appropriate hourly rate would or should be. And I really do agree that this commission really needs to take a look, and maybe it's even on an annual basis, you know, and decide, are we going to subsidize it 75% or 50% or 25% or not at all? And I will tell you that one commissioner, Commissioner Thomas, thinks that you pay to play. And he said it at the County Board Strategic Planning meeting. That's not to say that the board feels that way, but I really do think we need to take a look at some point soon of our fee structure, and certainly what the county board did for American Legion, 50%. It was for only 1 year, but nevertheless, I just think that we should address this. And we are going to need to address fees pretty soon. If memory serves me, the Friends of Ice contract runs out for Halloween in 2015. Now, before the $8,000 for the 6-month rental, and by the way, they do pay a portion of the utilities for Halloween, as well as they contribute towards the cost of snow removal during that time period as well. But you know, there was only 1 meter on the Civic Center at one point. And Jason, and it was estimated by a formula. I just think it behooves us to go ahead. Interrupt me, please.
Oh no.
Save me from myself.
The other caveat of the ice lease is that prevents us, or it eliminates the necessity for us to hire a staff person to maintain that facility. An ice arena is a very staff-intensive facility because you have to Zamboni the ice every 50 to an hour and 20 minutes. So that's one of the other caveats of that
and
facility.
The maintenance of the equipment, too.
Not to mention the maintenance of the equipment. So that is one of the other caveats. We only receive $8,000. Is that arena worth more than that? Absolutely. But it also eliminates a lot of the staff costs. You know, the staff, just a ballpark, a staff person, we would need approximately at least 3 staff people to run that facility at a minimum of $40,000 total package for each of those, and that's if they're not in the union. So, I mean, that's $120,000 savings by having someone run that for us instead of us doing it.
Commissioner Doria?
Jason, not to put you on the spot, but could you tell us what the impact would be of a 50% reduction in our fees and rentals and user fees?
It would vary based on the facility. We've had people come talk about the pool this evening. For instance, Breakers, last year, in 2010, Breakers paid $27,892.20 to Grand Traverse Parks and Recreation, so half that. You know, if we cut that by 50%, they'd be paying about $13,000.
Okay.
If we were to eliminate, if we cut all of the fees that come in specifically to the Civic Center, based on 2010 numbers, we would be down to, we'd go from a $32,000 revenue to a $16,000 revenue. In the pool, we'd go from $285,697.40 down to $142,848.70.
How about the ice rink? Is that part of Civic Center?
Howe Arena is kind of an interesting situation because we have such a diverse array of events going on in there. We have the ice agreement, so, for 6 months of the year, we receive $8,000. The one variable we have within for revenues in the arena depends on the number of activities that we have going on in there. We've been fairly static with what we offer in there by offering the hunting and fishing show, the RV show, the Habitat for Humanity show year in, year out. One of the things we have seen, and we saw it in the 2010 budget, and we're seeing it again in 2011, and in fact, I'm going to be talking to you about another event that wants to come be a part, or come participate in the arena. So I've added all of those things, and Howe Arena itself in 2010 brought in $43,322.75 in revenue. Having that would be $21,000. So total, we're talking about almost $200,000 if we halved our
Okay, and
revenues.
where's the YMCA? Are they part of the Civic Center, 32,000?
YMCA in 2010 they paid $13,400.
And how much is American Legion's annual bill?
The last annual bill that we received from American Legion was $10,351.
All right, I asked these questions just to demonstrate all the different parties that we have. These are just group fees. I should note, I spent 6 years on the board of directors of the YMCA. I'm very interested in the YMCA. I'm a big supporter of the YMCA. It's not fair to give a discount to one user group without even talking about the others. And I include the pool people, too.
Commissioner Max Bauer?
I got a printout from Dean Bott, and the total revenues for Parks and Rec in 2010 was $481,385.68. That's according to the sheet that I got. Now, that includes $36,987 from baseball, and it also includes the reimbursements from hockey, et cetera. But to cut that in half would be about
$200,000.
Yeah, $200,000.
The figures I utilized for my table were specifically rents paid to the Civic Center, the pool, and Howe Arena. So those those weren't indicative of concession fees or any other revenues coming in from a variety of sources. Those are just specifically what we send out in invoices and bring back in payments.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Any other comments? All right. Thank you. Next item of business, employees smoking at the Civic Center. Commissioner Max Bauer.
This was me. I have received a number of complaints because there's an employee, and it's not a county employee. I want to make that absolutely clear. It's an employee of the ice arena who apparently smokes at pretty much the same time every day outside the ice arena. They're not in front of the building, they're in back of the building. And Jason, I was told that you received complaints about this employee smoking. I will tell everyone that I called the Traverse City ordinance officer. I asked one individual, the last person who called me and complained about this and said, I smell this coming down that hill. They stand outside that exit door. And I went, the exit door. There's a city ordinance. So I called the city ordinance guy. And he said, yeah, I can go over and enforce that. The reason I asked for this to be on the agenda is I would appreciate the board's support in asking Jason to please contact the Friends of Ice or the people who do operate Howe Ice Arena, and please ask them to ask their employees not to smoke on the property.
All right, do you have a motion? We speak with one voice.
Well, I'll make a motion that we request our director contact the operators of Howe Ice Arena and request they ask their employees not to smoke on the property. There is a no smoking ordinance. There's no support.
Can we get some discussion?
Is there support for the motion?
What about discussion?
I'll support it for
Okay.
discussion purposes anyway.
All right, stand by. All right, so Max Bauer moves that we request our director to contact the operators of Howe Arena to request that their employees not smoke within?
Yes, on the property.
Okay. Moved by Max Bauer, seconded by Doran. Discussion. Commissioner Doran.
Didn't we prohibit smoking in the whole Civic Center?
We,
Yes.
is that the only question you're going to have? Because I have, this has already been taken care of. I did not.
Have you already taken care of this?
Yes.
Okay.
This is an
Never
issue.
mind.
I didn't receive any complaints from any users of the facility, because when this was codified, this is something that we had, at the time, we had a couple smokers from our facilities management department, and to be honest with you, I know, we don't have any smokers that I know of within the Parks and Recreation Department, so as far as employees are concerned, we did the appropriate thing in notifying those employees. The first I had heard of this was Commissioner Max Bauer's call to have this put on the agenda. Right then, I contacted Danny Brown over at Facilities, as well as the folks at ICE. Folks at ICE came clean, said, yep, I was smoking out back. I talked with their executive director. We've posted the ordinance again inside Facilities Management in the event the person that they saw was a facilities employee. I've also talked with the code officer about this issue, and he's confident that we've done all the right things in notifying employees. There were a couple ashtrays strewn about still within the Civic Center that I wasn't aware of, so if those have not been cleaned up by today, they certainly will be cleaned up by the end of the week. So that's where we stand in this.
Thank you. Could you refresh my memory? Did we, when we prohibited smoking last summer, was that just for the ball fields, or was that for the whole Civic Center?
It was the entire 45 acres of the Civic Center, and that is actually smoke and tobacco-free.
I'll withdraw my motion.
All right. Any further discussion? Motion is withdrawn. All right. Next item, aquatic report.
I don't have too much to add to it tonight. We have seen, though, in this last week, a huge increase in swimming lesson requests. We are down to all but, I want to say, 8 classes that we offered this term being filled. So that is positive. So the number of swim lessons that I report on here, that was at the time to print for the deadline. So that number you should see that increase for the next month. The other thing, I have 2 other additional things that are not on the report. We've had several brown trouts, as I like to call them, in the pool this year alone. We are finding that it's one particular user group has had this incident 4 times this year at pretty much the same time. And I just wanted to assure you that I am working with that group. I guess the school principal, it is a school group, the school principal wasn't even aware of it until I called and talked to her about it. So I just wanted to assure you that we are working on resolving that problem, and that school is looking at some new policies for that group as far as containment. The other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is I met with Harvey Norris this morning. He works with he's a volunteer for the Power Squadron. It's a very hard word to say. Harvey's main goal is enforcing life or not enforcing, but I guess kind of enforcing life jackets and getting parents to put life jackets on their youth and for adults to have them in the boats if they're not. He would really like to see them even wearing them. But he also wants to see children learn to swim. And so that if they don't have their life jacket on them, if, mom thinks, oh, they're just going to be playing here in the shallow water, they go deeper and something happens, that child does have the skills necessary to at least roll on their back and float, which is something you actually need in a life jacket as well. We had a great meeting today. He and I kind of threw around doing a free open swim to the public at a date in June where it would be a try before you buy kind of thing. He is looking on getting some grant money to be able to purchase the life jackets and to be able to cover the cost of the lifeguards. I think it would be appropriate for us to not charge pool rent for that. The other kind of thing that I kind of threw in there was if we could use those life jackets that everybody tried on and maybe raffle them off at the end of the day. And the way you get a raffle ticket is by signing up for swim lessons. And so those participants in the free open swim that try on a life jacket and then they sign up for swim lessons, they'll be put in this drawing to receive a life jacket. It's in the very beginning stages. Like I said, we just met this morning, but that's kind of where we're at with that. So, any questions for me about the report?
All right, thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Director's report. Jason, thank you for providing the written report. I found it very informative, and I appreciate the effort you put into it.
Absolutely. I appreciate your recommendation to include the outstanding projects within my director's report. Tonight, I'm going to kind of tie together items number 1 and item number 3C, the DNRE document, as well as the strategic plan work plan update. Included in the packet, you have my strategic plan work plan. And I'm kind of hesitantly excited about filling you in with what's going on right now with our community collaboration committee. As I stated in our last meeting, our committee put together a problem statement that we went out to look for a statement of work to ask some of the broader questions that have never really been asked of the community as far as what they really need for parks and what their perception is of what they need for parks and recreation. I'm excited to say that the work of our committee we've received a statement of work through Woods Consulting out of Ludington. They're part of the North Sky nonprofit network that helps nonprofit organizations fulfill their mission more effectively. And the statement of work will provide a variety of different, will provide us a really good baseline for a lot of information that goes into several of the plans, including the DNRE document, the strategic plan for each park, the safety audit for each park, the ADA transition plan for each park, the business plan for each park. All the information that will come out of this will give us that strong supporting information that we need to get started on any of these plans associated with your strategic plan. It will also fulfill the objective to explore a plan for executing a needs analysis. In fact, it takes it a step further. What this statement of work will provide is a needs analysis for parks and recreation services in the Grand Traverse and within Grand Traverse County, as well as the TCAPS school district. And what this is, the statement of work is going to provide information about collaborative planning among organizations providing recreational services in Grand Traverse County that is more responsive to the needs of county residents while also being more efficient in the delivery of recreational services with a focus on youth. So that's kind of the premise for this statement of work. The statement of work, they're going to do this organization's going to do some primary and secondary research. Primary research is going to include how effectively survey respondents, how effectively their recreational needs are being met and by whom. They're going to identify major recreational programs used by the family, site of delivery, and seasonality. What recreational programs would residents be very likely or somewhat likely to use if available at a convenient location? What the barriers are, if any, to utilizing existing recreation programs offered in the county. How do families/households learn about the availability of key recreational programs? To what extent is price and cost a barrier to the use of the programs? And they're going to specifically market some subgroups within our population, including baby boomers, young professionals with preschool children, households with double income, no children, to evaluate and take the sample. So this is really a broader needs analysis, as well as a recreation inventory for both Grand Traverse County and the TCAP school district. This is going to come at a cost of about $9,220. That cost this is being transferred, this information directly from North Sky is being transferred into a grant application through our Community Collaboration Committee to receive the remaining funding, hopefully, through Rotary Charities to have this carried out. This is a very effective way for us to gain that baseline information, as I stated, for our DNR document, as well as the 4 other plans that are listed within your strategic plan. I think this is the most effective, most efficient way, and it will ask some broader questions. When this is complete, maybe one of the things it talks about is maybe we need to get rid of the County Parks and Recreation Department altogether, or maybe it's combining city and county, and maybe it's creating a Parks and Recreation Authority. I don't know what's going to come out of this, but from the research and from the information I have within that's been asked from our department in years past, these broader questions have never been posed. Our collaboration committee is adamant that in order for us to best evaluate and best answer the needs of the community as a whole, we need to ask these broader questions. I will keep you informed as far as how things are moving forward with this. Right now, as I said, we have the statement of work. We have the cost, $9,220. That cost is going to be, or hopefully, be funded by Rotary Charities. The application should be in by the end of this month or should be in the next few days, actually, for consideration by the end of the month by Rotary Charities. So once it's completed, it's something that, being part of the committee, I'll have access to. And like I said, it's going to provide a very efficient way for us to have all of the information we need for the planning that you set forth for 2011. Are there any questions in regards to that?
So the statement of work and the proposal from Woods Consulting was to gather the data. That's right? Is that right?
Do the primary and secondary research, correct. So yes, gathering of data, both brand new data, from surveys and whatnot, as well as compile the data from, say, Grand Traverse County's master plan or Garfield Township's master plan and any other surveys or any other information that would be pertinent to this. Maybe some information from the Grand Vision.
And then the consortium of the organizations and groups that are involved in this effort then will take that data and make recommendations or conclusions based on the data. Is that accurate?
Correct. That's the intent right now. Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Doria.
I remember back in our strategic planning process a few months ago, I was pushing for this type of an inventory and needs analysis, and here it is for free. And this is where we're going to find out how many people want to play bocce ball, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
It's a great opportunity.
Yes.
It's one of the basic foundations of your recreation master plan is your needs analysis.
No doubt, yes. Yeah, this couldn't have happened in a more fortuitous time for us.
And possibly the data too also can help provide some of that linkage with that we need to have for our ends, in which we need to utilize the internet and explore ways to survey the public in terms of what our ends are. And I think that's really important as the component that we haven't really addressed yet, so that it's more like a bottoms-up instead of top-down conclusions and ends that we determine in the end we follow or make up our vision. So anyway, so this is, I agree with you, Mr. Dorier, that your suggestion for needs analysis was really a good thing to follow, and way to go, Jason.
Thank you. On to the Civic Center Master Plan, unless there are other questions, I guess. Sorry, kind of anxious. Just to give you guys an update, we look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday, February 22nd at the Civic Center, 6 p.m. for Master Plan Input, Civic Center Master Plan Input meeting. We've done our best to get the word out in regards to these, in regards to this meeting. We've sent emails out to everyone on our email list for the pool, our baseball email list. Any other emails that we have from user groups, people like that, or larger groups that utilize our facilities. We've posted notices in all of the county buildings. We've notified all the townships, all the municipalities. We've advertised both in the Insider and have put public notice in the Record Eagle. Flyers have been put for some of our passive users of the park. We put flyers up around the walking track to ensure that our walkers, who we don't really associate, we don't talk to quite often enough. We put posters up out there. It's been advertised on our Facebook page. So we are doing our best to get the information out. There are a couple people that have contacted me over the years that say, I really want to see this happen at the Civic Center. I really want that to happen. And I've called those people. One of them is a pickleballer, Russ, so you should be happy about that. So we're getting the word out. We've also been in touch, oddly enough, with a city Parks and Recreation commissioner who's actually advertised it a couple times on his blog, getting people to, or encouraging people to come talk about, specifically about, the original post was to talk about access to the Civic Center from Garfield Roads, or Garfield Avenue. So we have gotten some publicity that way as well. So we're excited about it, not to mention what was in the ticker last month.
Can you repeat the date and time?
That is Tuesday, February 22nd, from 6 to 8, or 6 o'clock, I guess is the starting time, in the Civic Center meeting room.
Thank you.
Commissioner Clark, what will the format be of that? Will we be in a panel with a rotating or revolving series of people coming to talk to us, or will it be more free flow?
Actually, I'm going to probably recruit a couple members to assist me with the presentation. The format will basically be, I want to identify everything that I've heard to date that people would like to have happen at the Civic Center. So I will present that information along with the analysis I presented last month that you saw of the graphics, and then we will open it up for brainstorming input to the Parks and Rec for commissions to consider of ideas in addition to the list already generated. So I'll need some assistance in getting those items up on the charts. Then I would like to, with your permission, ask the folks to give us their priorities, because in the end, we have to make final priorities, but the public has an opportunity to put their highest priority on something on the greater list, and we can see how that all comes out. Gives us some general direction. We may not be able to meet all of the objectives because it's only 45 acres. It's already intensely developed, but we should be able to do some of the things that are on the wish list, for sure. And this information is going to be extremely valuable in the master planning process that I bring back to you folks to help establish the master plan. And I need to have consensus, of all these ideas that are generated during this public input process from this commission. What is our number one priority? What is our number two priority? What is our number three? And some of those priorities may have nothing to do with a physical improvement on the property. It could be something simply as saying, get rid of this. I don't know. But I will look for that input at a later meeting from this commission before I generate a draft plan. But that's the format. Go through what we've heard to date from input from user groups and individuals, then open it up to brainstorming for additional expansion of the list or feeding of other ideas off from the current list, then provide an opportunity for people to help vote their priorities, top 5 items, and I'll provide the materials to do that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Two final things. Just wanted to give you guys an update with the, on the MRPA conference that was held here in Grand Traverse County last week. I'd like to thank those of you that attended. I hope you enjoyed it and you found it to be a good conference. I was the conference chair, so anything that went wrong was ultimately my responsibility, so I hope you found everything very educational and pleasurable. It was an exciting opportunity to lead the conference. We actually had 263 delegates to the conference itself, 34 trail delegates. We filled the resort we provided 704 room nights to the Grand Traverse Resort for an organization that has 1,400 various types of members. 180 agencies are members of MRPA, as well as 85 vendor members. So we did pretty well with the conference. From a personnel or from a delegate standpoint, we were down a little bit, but from a revenue perspective, we had a pretty sharp increase in the number of vendors that came up for our exhibit hall. So from a revenue perspective, we did really well. I hope you enjoyed it. We were able to bring some great keynote speakers in, both our opening and closing. And just wanted to thank you for the opportunity, I guess, for our staff to go. I think we had approximately, throughout the course of the week, we had approximately 15 different local elected, appointed, or hired employees or people interested in parks and recreation within Grand Traverse County that attended conference. So we're pretty excited about that. I think that's probably the highest turnout we've ever had at a conference for our local officials. So for those of you that were there, I hope you enjoyed it.
Commissioner Dwyer.
Yeah, I was there. It was a really good, I was only there for Thursday morning, but I went to 2 really good sessions. One was the Recreation Authority Redux, and the other one was collaboration. They were pretty similar, but the theme and the conversation at that conference was all about collaboration and about providing recreation opportunities for the least impact on the taxpayer. And it was kind of cool. Brought back a lot of memories for me. I'm a former member of the Florida Recreation and Parks Association, the Indiana Recreation and Parks Association, and I thought I was a life member of the National Recreation and Parks Association, but I stopped getting mail from them, so either I'm not or I died. I'm not sure which. And the one theme that came through to me over and over again was about improving the quality of life and the quality of place and the economic impact that a properly aligned recreation delivery system can have on a region. One of the presenters, the guy from town here, Harry Buckholder, is that his name?
Buckholder.
He was really good, but he was talking about the authorities and how they work around the country. He brought up the example, I have his handout here with me, but he brought up the example of this giant park system in Chicago that got put in place, or it's a regional park. And he told about the Boeing Corporation, and when they were looking for a new home, a new corporate headquarters, they looked at, I think it was Dallas or Chicago, the 2 of those, and they chose Chicago, and they came right out and said that one of the reasons they did it was because of this great new recreation push that was happening in Chicago. So I just thought I'd share that. Running a conference like that is a really big job, and I want to applaud Jason. He did a great job at it. It's quite an honor to have that type of a thing in our county.
All right, thank you.
And absolutely. The last thing I have for you today is I've been working with a gentleman named Doug Mirabelli, who is the president of the Catch 'em All Foundation, which is a local foundation associated with, or a local foundation whose mission is to get kids to participate in youth sports. Doug has a vast amount of experience with baseball and is interested in actually hosting some baseball clinics, some player clinics within Howe Arena on March 22nd and 23rd, as well as April 19th, 20th, and 21st. The interesting thing with this, and the reason I'm bringing it to the commission, is he can't afford to in order to keep costs low, to rent the facility, to rent Howe Arena, it'd be about, for a nonprofit organization, it's $1,665 per day, which is a pretty lofty goal. And in order to keep this an affordable program, Doug approached us and said, is there a way we can be creative with providing this service at a low cost to players? And this is something, it is a baseball program. It's something that we're not running, but it is an opportunity for all the youth of Grand Traverse County to, no matter if they plan on participating with Legion, or if they participate in Little League, or folks from even outside of the community. What Doug really needs help with is three things. He needs help with marketing, he needs help with registration, and he needs a venue to do this in. One of the things that I kicked around with Doug today, and this is something that I don't want to say it's a huge risk, but it could be a little bit risky, I guess you could say, is if we were able to take the program. We have a large number of emails, approximately 470, that we could send out to the folks that were part of our baseball program last year, and then take the registration for this program at our we would take the registration, register the player or the participant, and we would we would set the arena up as appropriate for the program, and then we would keep 30% of the revenue for doing the marketing, for doing the registration, doing the arena setup, and hosting it, and then the 70% would go to the Catch 'Em All Foundation for their time and effort that they would put into the program, as well as pay any coaches they have, or I'm not sure if their coach would be volunteer. This is kind of an interesting thing because it came up today. The deadline for it, or the date of the event, is March 22nd. I've told this commission before that I wouldn't put something that needed a motion in my director's report, but because of the timeliness of this, I wanted to add it here and open it up to any comments or any suggestions, any concerns that the commission may have. I'd like to move forward with this, and know that this splitting the cost when the organization takes on the registration, marketing, and things like that is a standard practice within community recreation. I just wanted to know what this commission thought of that, or if there were any concerns. If there are no concerns, I'd like to move forward with it. But I did want to bring it up here for any comments.
Commissioner Dwyer, in discussing this with Jason earlier today, while I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the kids to get some baseball instruction from a veteran Major League Baseball player, what I don't want to do is to set up a situation where we have an unfair pricing situation. And so that was my primary issue, and I'm all for this, and I would love to make this happen. What I don't want to do is violate the law of unintended consequences and open up a door that I don't really want to have open. What are your thoughts?
I don't think you opened the door. I think the door's been opened. What's the total dollar amount we're talking about here?
We don't have a total dollar amount. The percentage, the 70-30 split, would be dependent on the number of kids.
Okay.
If they had 400 kids throughout the course of it, we would make, and the rates are $25 for the 2-day, $35 for the 3-day, or $50 for both sessions.
I can't do math. You've done it. What are you looking at? What's the range?
If we had, I figured it out earlier. If we had 400, let's say we had 200 kids, and this is a 6-hour program per day for a variety of different times. If we had 400 kids over the course of the 5 days, it'd be about a $750 revenue for us.
200 kids averaging about $35 per sign-up would be, what, $7,000? Third of that, roughly.
That was 4,200. 4,200. It would be, if we had 400 kids over the course of 400 kids at $35, 30% of that would be $4,200 for us.
I'd suggest we if we're interested in doing this, that maybe what we do is we authorize Jason to work with this on a sharing basis up to a certain dollar amount.
In the percentage is in lieu of the rental fee?
Correct.
Can you tell me more about the Catch 'em All Foundation? How long have they been in existence, and they are a nonprofit?
They are a nonprofit. Doug Mirabelli is a retired Major League Baseball world champion baseball player. He's been in our community for 4 years, or he's been retired 4 years, been here 4 years. And the drive for this foundation, it's a fairly new foundation, but Doug works with the YMCA quite often and sets up camps and clinics like this and does some fundraising in order to ensure scholarships for kids to participate in youth sports. It's not just specifically a baseball organization. It's looking out for youth being able to play sports.
And that's the mission of the Catch 'em All Foundation?
Correct.
You know, under different circumstances, I suggest maybe we try to partner with the Y on this. I don't think that'd be a good idea right now. But what do you think about authorizing this up to a dollar level?
Authorizing, I don't understand the dollar level part of it. As an example.
Well, we roughly calculated that our share would be in the $4,000 range.
If they had
given
400 kids, yeah.
Given the attendance that Jason's projecting. I'm suggesting we authorize him to work with this organization on a 30-70 split basis up to a cap level of $4,000. In other words, if only half the kids show up, then we won't be out $4,000, we'll be out $2,000 roughly. Does that make sense, or does anybody else have a better idea? I'm just winging it here.
I think I know where you're going, big picture, but I'm not sure of the formula you're using for to derive that number. You mean we would give up, it's a 5-day or a 3-day?
There are 2 sessions. One is a 2-day session, the other is a 3-day session.
Okay, so a total of 5. And we
Correct.
normally charge $1,650 per day for the facility?
Correct.
So that's approximately $8,000.
For a full-
So, and then we stand to get up to $4,200. So, Bill, are you suggesting that we would forego a maximum of $4,000?
Yeah, because what, you're right, I wasn't looking at it the right way. It's going to come in, it's revenue coming in for rental of the facility. So I guess what I'm suggesting is we subsidize them. I mean, normally I wouldn't, this isn't a really good idea, but like Jason says, we need to make a decision on this tonight. That's unfortunate, but that's what we need to do.
Commissioner Doran?
Is there anybody else that is interested in renting the facility during that time?
We haven't been approached at this point. And to rental of a facility like that kind of has an expiration date on it. So, if we don't have, right now those dates are unencumbered. That's the reason those dates were chosen. They're in the middle of the week, and they're in between arena shows. So like the hunting and fish, or they're between the RV show.
So the loss or the not receiving of the $1,650 a day is just hypothetical because nobody's out there to rent it.
Correct. It's a low risk loss for us. I mean, we would more than likely, if this doesn't go, we won't see any revenue for those days.
What days of the week are those?
Those are 22nd and 23rd is a Tuesday-Wednesday combination, and the 19th, 21st is a Tuesday, 19th through the 21st is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
And those aren't days that we normally rent them anyway, right?
Are those school days, or is that during spring break or something?
It's right before spring break.
Right before.
The week before.
The week before spring break?
Correct.
Well, I'm in favor of it. I think that,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Bob.
I just, and speculating, if it's a 6-hour program, are they going to get out of school to participate?
Because they'll range it by hour, or range it by age per hour, or per specific amount of time. So the later kids would go later since they stay up later, and the younger kids would go earlier. Similar to the scheduling they would do for hockey rinks and hockey games.
Like a 3 to 6 and a 6 to 9
Correct.
session kind of thing?
Correct.
Don't have 5-year-olds out there fielding ground balls for 6 hours.
Right, right.
You want a motion?
I do. Can we have a motion I guess to,
No, I want you to make it.
All right, I'll make a motion that we authorize the director to, if, after he's done some investigation regarding the Catch 'em All Foundation, determines it to be a true nonprofit charitable organization, that he rent the facility and do the marketing on the basis of the 30-70 split.
I support.
stand by. All right, let me try these words. Moved by Doran, seconded by Joseph, is that correct?
Yes.
To authorize the director to rent the Civic Center facility, I guess the Howe Arena is where it would be, correct?
Correct.
Just within the arena,
Correct.
okay? To rent Howe Arena, do the marketing for the event, provide registration support under a 70-30% split of revenues with Catch 'em All Foundation for 5 dates this spring following let's see, I'm looking for words on the research of the foundation.
Pending research of the mission statement of the Catch 'em All.
Pending verification of Catch 'em All's nonprofit status. Okay.
Nonprofit and charitable, I think that they should have it, that we're doing this on the basis that they're a charitable or educational organization.
Okay, good words. Let me try it again. Moved by Doran, seconded by Joseph, to authorize the director to rent Howe Arena, do marketing for the event, provide registration support under a 70-30% split of revenues with Catch 'em All Foundation for 5 dates this spring for a baseball skills clinic, pending verification of Catch 'em All's nonprofit and charitable status. Do you agree,
Yes.
Commissioner Doran, with that wording?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Discussion. Commissioner Max Bauer?
I will beat a dead horse, and will take this opportunity to, and I will also repeat myself. I really do think we need to, once again, take a look at our fees, and maybe we do rent Howe Arena during the week at a lower fee than on weekends, and maybe we do subsidize nonprofits, and maybe we do just make arrangements with firms for a portion of the revenue. But I think we need to take a look at our overall fee policy and structure soon. That's it.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, discussion closed. Does anybody need me to read the motion again? All right, all in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries to authorize the director to rent Howe Arena, do marketing for the event, provide registration support under a 70-30% split of revenues with Catch 'em All Foundation for 5 dates this spring for baseball skills clinic, pending verification of Catch 'em All's nonprofit and charitable status. All right, anything else, Jason?
That's it for my report.
Okay. All right, now open the floor to a second public comment period. Is there anyone who would like to speak from the public?
That would be me.
Okay.
You need my name again?
Still Nancy Stanwyck?
Should we get her address for minutes?
It's 4415 Wyatt Road, Traverse City, 49684. The first comment that I had would be about what you were just discussing. Because the swim team, when, I hate to go there, but when we have open houses for people to join the swim club, because it's open to everyone at any level of swimming. It's not, you don't have to try out for it. It's open to everyone. But correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have to pay for the pool time itself to have the open house to come in. So if you're doing something like this for baseball, is that something that the swim team could also utilize? When we have an open house for new members to come in, just something to think about. And the other thing is, there was a member that was here that wanted to be recognized, and I don't know if I'm allowed to do that or not, but she had to leave to pick up her daughter from the pool. So is that something that you need to know, or does it make a difference in the long run? She just wanted to be counted as being here, supporting the team and what we were speaking about.
Okay, we'll take her name down and register her support.
Okay, her name is Pam Carrigan, and it's spelled Carrigan. Her address is 4375 Baywood Drive, and it is 86. So,
All right, thank you.
that would be all. Thank you very much.
Anyone else, public comment? All right, seeing none. Commissioner comments? Yes, Commissioner Max Bauer.
You all have a copy of 2 FOIA requests I made, and I would like to express my concern with the response of an information that's in the pool log regarding coliform bacteria, I guess. And I'll start with what the pool log says on December 31st, added 13 gallons of chlorine at 2 p.m. We were short 3 gallons. This was after coliform contamination. The other thing that concerns me is I'm noticing here that it says 1/4/11 notified of second consecutive coliform test. Yet the coliform test that was given to me by Jason, the date on it's 1/5. The pool log doesn't seem to match what the lab says. And I will tell you, I'm primarily concerned because if that coliform test date is correct, January 5th, swimmers were in that. I was at the pool Wednesday, and it says that notification was made at 8:20 in the morning, and swimmers were in that pool. Swimmers were in the pool on Monday, the 3rd. I'm truly concerned, and I just wanted to express it.
Okay. Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Clark.
I just wanted to indicate I will not be able to make the joint meeting. I'm going to be out of town that night, but I intend to put my comments and thoughts in writing. I'd like to request that they be read to the county board.
Okay, I'll address that here at the end of commissioner comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Doria?
Just a brief one. Looking at the material that was handed out when we talked about the 50% fee reduction, I have a different version of the state law that I got from Bob Cooney about a month ago. I'll be sending that out with your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
To the rest of the commissioners with maybe a little brief explanation. As long as you don't respond to my email, then I think we'll be okay with the Open Meetings Act.
Commissioner Max Bauer?
I wanted to add one more thing, and it's in Kim's aquatic report, and that is, and I'm saying this for the member of the public, I'm going to have a hard time not tearing up, but the county lost Ben Myers. And Ben, I know Al knew Ben. Ben was a lifeguard over at the pool. And what many people don't know is Ben was in the Iowa Coaching Hall of Fame. He had a 20-yard pool, and he had maybe about I saw at the funeral, I saw the picture of his swim team, maybe 15 swimmers. Ben consistently turned out All-Americans. The kids, and he was all, his wife, Tina, had a list of his awards, and he was so modest. You would have never known that man had that kind of coaching ability. You certainly didn't hear it from him. But he was a wonderful human being. He was a Louis L'Amour fan. He had every single book, leather-bound, that Louis L'Amour ever wrote. And I just want to say that I will miss him greatly, as I know that the staff over at the pool will also miss him.
All right, thank you for those comments. Commissioner Carstens, do you have comments for us this evening?
Mr. Dorier, excuse me, made reference to placemaking, and I believe there's a placemaking conference on March the 1st that's going on, and it's what is happening in Acme with their shoreline protection is part of that placemaking effort, and I think it's, given what I've heard from the members of this commission, they all, whether they know it or not, are involved in placemaking very much. And then you also referred to the economic aspect and the contribution that our parks are making and can continue to make in the future. And so to me, that's the big picture kind of things that we need to be focused on. And so I have some planning and zoning news issues that focus on those matters, and I would just like to share them with you just for your perusal at your leisure. But I think, and particularly this one, they refer to the assets of a community, and our parks are very definitely our assets. And the programs that we will offer are considered to be assets too, as was emphasized in some of the programs that I went to at your conference, Jason, where some of the most advanced and wealthy communities in this state and that we're competing with for entrepreneurs, they have just very, very rich programs that they offer to their residents. And so programs are an important element of what we kind of maybe might need in order to be competitive. Now we're competing not only with other places in the state, but actually with the world. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, just a couple of very brief items. For those interested in delving into the intricacies of the Open Meetings Act, Bob Cooney's having a couple of meetings that are open to us, among all other sorts of county-type employees. On March 1st, there's a morning session, there's an afternoon session, and just sign up if you need that contact information to sign up. I still have that for an RSVP on that. That's March 1st, Open Meetings Act seminar, essentially. Also, Russ made mention of the Board of Commissioners joint meeting, which is on March 16th at 6 p.m. A lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings that could go on about that. I want the meeting to be as productive, as positive as possible. So what I'm asking you for is by the end of Sunday, could you please send me, I guess, your thoughts, just brief. I don't want the 6-page soapbox or diatribe, but just some bullet points about sort of what message you would like to convey to the Board of Commissioners as a Park and Rec Commission. They're soliciting agenda items, And I would like to see that we have a productive conversation towards that. So I'll consolidate those. I'll work with Commissioner Doran, and we'll send up some agenda items so that we can be heard, and we can, we'll have we'll just see if we have consensus on the board, or if we need to be speaking individually, or how that's going. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like. I think that will become clearer as I gather your inputs. But just some bullet statements or some comments about things that you would like to discuss, or a message that you would like to send in that joint meeting with the Board of Commissioners. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Clark.
One last comment. The last time there was a joint meeting between County Parks and Rec Commission and the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners was in January of 2005, and it followed the year of public uprising over Twin Lakes. So that...
What did the public...
Well, it was a lot of issues. A comment was made at one point that the county ought to give Twin Lakes to Long Lake Township, and the roller coaster started from there.
And you're not making that comment right now.
I'm not making that comment now. No. But
You want a motion?
that unfortunately, that was the last time we met jointly, and at that point, we had requested to be able to meet once or twice a year or every 2 years, and it has not happened since. So one of my comments is going to be that this happen on a regular basis.
Okay. Very good. All right. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
All right, moved by Dorn, supported by Taylor to adjourn. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you for your patience tonight.